Today, 12,000 people from campsites like this will take one of the largest construction projects ever conceived one step closer to completion. Their job? To move mountains, bend rivers, carve great channels through miles of solid rock, construct 4 mammoth dams to produce electric power for homes and factories in vast areas to the south. An enormous undertaking, but in fact, only a tiny part of the total effort carried forward relentlessly, day after day, by people all around the globe. The job of building for tomorrow. An endless process of giving tangible shape to grand concepts and dreams. The expression in infinite ways of man's creative spirit. A tradition old as human history. The evidence still remains of the skill and determination of builders through the ages to alter and improve their world according to their own vision. That drive, that will to build, still endures today. But there are changes. Today's builders have the tools, the power, the technical capabilities to achieve far more than ever before. And beyond that, there are new objectives, new priorities. All too often, the splendid construction works of the past did little to serve the basic needs of people. They were costly monuments for the satisfaction of a few at the expense of many. Builders of our time have different goals. Around the world today, they are at work on monuments of more vital and lasting value, dedicated not to a few, but to all of us. Monuments to a better life. What are these monuments that builders in every land must construct for this and future generations? Nothing less than these essentials of life, security, and progress. Plentiful supplies of food, reliable sources of energy, fuel for heat, light, power, housing, access to the world's rich resources, minerals, products of the forest, water, the means of transportation by land, sea, and air. For all these and the other basic needs of all people, we look to the world's builders, who work in 1,000 different ways, and wherever they work, in the fields, the forests, the mines, in the city or the wilderness, on construction projects large and small. They are more than engineers, machine operators, ranchers, miners, loggers. They are, in the fullest sense, builders. And they are creating new monuments, more important in human terms than even the greatest works of the past. The ancient Greeks erected this temple, the incomparable Parthenon, and other magnificent structures in gratitude to their gods, to whom they looked for protection and sustenance, for all the elements of a bountiful life. But in modern Greece, the assurance of abundant crops and other necessities depends on monuments of a more practical kind. This, for example, a system of giant aqueducts to supply water for irrigating arid regions of the country. Not only here, but all over the world, the primary challenge to builders is to expand the means of agricultural production, to feed ever-growing populations. And this is part of that building process, the necessary prelude to developing the bounty of the earth. The necessary steps builders are taking to overcome this tragic fact. More than half the world's land that could provide abundant yields is not farmed at all, or it is farmed by the inadequate ways of the past. Thus, the job of bringing newer and better methods to fields that have never yielded enough food. Modern equipment and tools now take over more and more of the back-breaking labors of old. Methods of irrigation that date back centuries give way to far more efficient systems. And with this new technology come crop yields unknown till now in South America, Asia, and Africa. And with power and machines of a different kind, builders take the first steps toward developing new fields on lands long thought useless for farming. In many regions, like Africa's Ivory Coast, they are leveling jungles that formerly blocked agricultural progress. And in the blinding dust of the deserts of Iran, they're shaping and forming huge expanses. Preparing them to hold the water necessary to sustain crop growth. From the Middle East to South America, from Nigeria to Indonesia, thousands have joined the determined new struggle against hunger. And the monuments these builders leave behind are bountiful crops on new fields where jungles once stood, or on once useless deserts. But the job does not end with the harvest. Equally vital is to ensure that crops once grown become food, that is, transported to those in need. Thus, the work of other builders, erecting monuments in the form of refineries, processing plants, and warehouses, and the facilities for reliable transport and distribution, roads and railways, to move the products of the new agriculture to markets. These monuments may not be models of architectural beauty, but they will serve people far better than so many monuments of the past. At Stonehenge in England, these structures stand surrounded by questions that have baffled the curious for ages. We can only guess how ancient engineers transported stones weighing more than 50 tons to this site, or how they raised them into position. nor can we say why the ancient builders undertook a job of such enormous difficulty. All we know for certain is that Stonehenge gives enduring proof of the will and determination of man as a builder. Some 35 centuries have passed, but that same will exists today in those who work to meet the needs of the modern world, including one of the most important, reliable supplies of energy. Only with power for heat, light, and transportation can modern life and social progress go on. And with dwindling reserves a constant challenge, the critical responsibility is to locate and develop new sources of oil and natural gas wherever they may lie, even if it means reaching down to the depths of the seas. Or the search may penetrate desert frontiers. And another job in the tradition of those who carried huge stones to Stonehenge, builders construct the means of carrying oil from the north slope of Alaska. And far from the wilderness of Alaska, in Turkey, in Brazil, and in Saudi Arabia, similar oil and natural gas pipelines extend over the lands. And while work goes on to find and move finite sources of energy, efforts of another kind are aimed at making use of a form of energy that will last forever: water power. The building of hydroelectric dams, not only in northern Canada, but throughout the world. In Greece, in Brazil, in Australia, the United States, on every continent. With the completion of these efforts, electricity, so often taken for granted in some parts of the world, will be amply supplied for the first time in others. Despite the scope of efforts to meet today's energy requirements, other work anticipates the world's longer-term needs. The job of providing for the safe use of nuclear energy, or of harnessing power from the sun. In contrast to modern research to develop the newest forms of energy, are the tedious methods still employed in many places to obtain one of the oldest. But because coal is being used in many new ways, such methods can no longer satisfy increasing demands. So, in more and more locations, modern surface mining operations are underway. These, too, are monuments, assuring a vital energy flow. In North America, in the United Kingdom, in Australia. Today's world depends on mining for coal and for all the varied mineral wealth of the earth: iron, lead, tin, nickel, potash, phosphates, all the raw materials of modern industry and world trade. So around the globe, builders are taking the search for new deposits of ore much farther, much deeper than men have ever gone before. When deposits are located, new mining and refining techniques make even low-grade ores valuable assets. Copper in Norway, oil sands in Western Canada, bauxite in South America, asbestos in Australia, aggregates in Brazil. All these and the other minerals to be used in thousands of different ways are moved from the mines for smelting, refining, processing, and then shipped to the markets of the world. And one other vital step in meeting future demands for minerals, assuring that the products of mines like these will be used over and over again. As long as work in recycling plants accompanies new mining, the odds are better that the world's demands for minerals will continue to be met, and we will have the minerals and the energy to create new monuments to rival and surpass those of long ago. Foremost among the world's ancient wonders, the pyramids of Egypt have stood for thousands of years as a symbol of one of the great civilizations of human history. It's impossible to look at these structures and not be impressed by the incredible perseverance of their builders. Some have calculated that building the Great Pyramid alone required the muscle and toil of 100,000 laborers working every day for 20 years. Consider the possibilities that can result today by joining the determination of ancient builders with the productivity of modern tools. Dreams once impossible can now become realities. Such dreams as providing housing for the millions who desperately need it all over this earth. In Africa, one project alone combines the work of thousands to construct new homes for more than 250,000 people. For those who have never enjoyed a decent home, what monuments could have greater meaning? Or what works could have more significance than new roads in nations where the movement of food and other necessities has been held to a crawl along narrow jungle paths or precipitous mountain trails? New roads to speed the journey of life-sustaining products in the developing nations of Africa, of Central and South America, and of Asia. In the parts of the world where they are most needed, there is no way to measure the benefits of these monuments. Everywhere there is building to be done. Not just roads and housing, but hospitals, factories and schools, community health and sanitation facilities, office buildings and bridges, all those requirements of society today. These are the monuments that builders are working to create. the monuments they mean to leave behind. But in these complex times, there is a further responsibility: to see that some monuments are not left behind. The ugly relics of past carelessness, waste, and greed. Scarred and ravaged countryside, permanently stripped forests and woodlands, poisoned water, and polluted air. Now, the essential work of building in all its forms must take full recognition not just of man's needs, but of nature's, present and future. The environmental concern shared by builders today is helping to guarantee that renewable resources such as wood will be available for all time. Giving seedlings a head start on life in controlled conditions. Selective planting in soils where growth will be fastest and surest. And protecting that growth with the thoughtful use of safe pesticides. All these are ways of making sure forests will remain abundant and full. The same regard for the future of the land is evident at surface mining operations around the world. As mining operations begin, the overburden that lies above the coal is set aside. Afterward, this soil is replaced, shaped and contoured. Planted with trees or grasses or crops. So that when the cycle is completed, the beauty and productivity of the land is restored. In these and other ways, where the job of building once carried the threat of environmental damage, it now promotes environmental protection. As they meet society's needs, the builders must still preserve the natural wonders of the world that inspired primitive men and women to create their first monuments. Thousands of years have passed since these works were completed, but they still stand as an inspiration and a reminder for today. That modern builders, like those of the past, must often face odds that seem overwhelming. They must overcome the opposition of skeptics and pessimists, those who have always said of every great work, it can't be done, or it shouldn't be done. But history has proved them wrong. Today, who can say what is impossible for the builders? For now, in our time, they have the tools, the power, the means of doing what could never be done before. The means to provide food, clothing, and housing for people everywhere. To develop natural resources and vital raw materials for the benefit of all. To produce and utilize energy efficiently, no matter what the source. To provide essential public services and education, not only for advancing technology, but for the wise management of our environment. Great goals? Great dreams? Certainly, but it's been said, some see things only as they are and ask why. Others dream of things that never were and ask, why not? Why not achieve those goals? Whatever builders of the past have accomplished can be done now, and infinitely more. It can be done faster, more easily, far more efficiently. It's not a question of ability, but of collective will, and not of builders, but of each of us, the will to share the cost of what must be done to meet our responsibilities to ourselves and to the future. By our choices and decisions, the work of the world's builders can go on. We can see once impossible dreams come true. We can all take part in planning and building a better world. So, why not a better world? The greatest of all monuments to tomorrow.